The morning started like any other in the city. The streets were crowded with people rushing to work, some holding coffee cups, others carrying briefcases or backpacks. The city was alive, full of the usual noise: honking cars, distant sirens, chatter from people walking on the sidewalks. Among the crowd, a little girl held tightly onto her mother's hand. She was small, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with big, curious eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. Her mother smiled at her, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's face. They were heading to visit the girl's grandmother, a trip she had been waiting for all week. The little girl's excitement was clear in the way she bounced slightly with every step, trying to skip but being gently pulled back by her mother's steady hand. They reached the subway station, and the mother paid for their tickets while the girl's eyes wandered to the colorful advertisements on the walls and the bright lights reflecting off the metal railings. The station was busy, filled with people who seemed in a hurry. Some were tapping on their phones, some reading newspapers, others just staring blankly as they waited for their trains. The little girl squeezed her mother's hand tighter, not entirely used to the crowd but enjoying the bustling energy. Her mother held her hand firmly, making sure she stayed close as they descended the stairs to the subway platform. When the train arrived, it was crowded, as always during the morning rush. People pressed against each other, some standing, some holding on to the poles and handles for balance. The little girl and her mother managed to find a small space near the door, where they could hold on to the railing. The train doors closed, and the rumble of the subway filled the car as it moved along the tracks. The little girl leaned slightly against her mother, trying to peek around at the other passengers. She saw a man standing nearby, someone she didn't recognize. He was older, dressed in dark clothes and holding a phone. At first he seemed harmless, just another commuter. But something about the way he kept glancing at the little girl made her mother feel uneasy. The mother noticed it too. She instinctively moved a little closer, putting herself between the girl and the man. She didn't say anything, not wanting to cause a scene, but her eyes followed him closely. The man pretended to be absorbed in his phone, scrolling or reading something, but his glances kept returning to the little girl. The mother's heart started to beat faster. She tightened her grip on her daughter's hand and subtly shifted, keeping the girl closer to herself. What neither the man nor the passengers realized was that someone else was also in the subway car, observing quietly. John Cena, blending in like an ordinary commuter, was standing nearby. He wasn't there for attention. He was just riding the subway, but his instincts were sharp. He noticed the man's subtle movements, the way his body seemed to edge closer to the girl every time the train jolted or swayed. Cena didn't move immediately, not yet. He wanted to be ready, to understand the situation fully before taking action. The little girl, unaware of the danger, continued to chatter softly to her mother about the day ahead. She talked about the flowers she wanted to pick at her grandmother's house, and the cookies she hoped they would bake together. Her voice was sweet and innocent, and it seemed to fill the small space around them with light, contrasting sharply with the tension building nearby. The mother smiled softly, trying to calm her own nerves, but her eyes never left the man. Every now and then she would glance around, hoping someone else would notice, hoping someone would step in if needed. The train jerked slightly as it slowed at the next station. People stumbled, trying to regain their balance. The man took the opportunity to move closer. He leaned slightly toward the little girl, and the mother's heart leapt. She instinctively stepped forward, pressing herself between her daughter and the man. Her grip on the little girl's hand became firmer, almost protective, as if her presence alone could keep the stranger at bay. Cena noticed the movement. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in focused attention. He could sense the danger before it fully manifested. He didn't want to panic anyone, didn't want to make the situation worse, but he also couldn't stand by and let the girl be harmed. He adjusted his position subtly, moving closer to the man while still keeping himself as inconspicuous as possible. His presence was calm yet firm, like a silent warning. Other passengers were oblivious for the most part, absorbed in their own worlds. A man reading a newspaper, a woman scrolling through her phone, a teenager listening to music with headphones in. No one seemed to notice the tension building in the small space near the doors. But the mother was alert. She whispered softly to her daughter, "Stay close to me, okay?" The little girl nodded, sensing the change in her mother's tone. She didn't fully understand why her mother sounded worried, but she trusted her completely. The man shifted again, testing the boundaries, trying to see if anyone was paying attention. His eyes flicked around, briefly meeting the gaze of other passengers, but he quickly looked away when no one reacted. He assumed he was unnoticed, that he could get away with whatever he was thinking, but Cena's watchful eyes followed every subtle movement. He was ready, not in a rush, but fully prepared to act the instant the situation escalated. The train continued to move through the tunnels, the rhythmic clatter of the tracks masking the tension in the car. The little girl leaned slightly closer to her mother, whispering about the cookies again, trying to bring back normalcy. Her mother nodded, smiling, trying to keep the mood light while silently keeping her guard up. Cena's attention never wavered. He knew that sometimes the most dangerous moments are the ones that start quietly, almost invisible to others. Minutes passed and the man's behavior became more brazen. He edged a little closer, his hand brushing against the space near the little girl. The mother's heart raced. She could feel the fear rising, the primal instinct to protect her child taking over. She shifted again, her body positioning herself as a shield. She whispered to her daughter to stay still, her voice trembling slightly despite her efforts to remain calm. Cena moved slightly, his presence now closer to the man. He didn't touch him, didn't make any sudden moves, but the subtle shift in posture, the quiet authority he radiated, was enough to startle the man. Cena's eyes locked onto him for a brief second, calm but unmistakably firm. The man froze, sensing something he couldn't quite understand. The little girl, still unaware of the danger, clutched her mother's hand a bit tighter. The mother noticed the pause, the hesitation in the man, and realized that someone else was now in play, someone who meant business without even speaking. The subway car felt smaller somehow, crowded with tension. The other passengers continued with their routines, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the corner. The mother took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart, while Cena maintained his watchful stance. He knew that one wrong move could escalate things, but he also knew that hesitation could be dangerous. The balance was delicate, like walking on a tightrope. As the train approached the next station, the man's impatience grew. He made a small movement, testing again. The mother tightened her grip, her voice low but firm, whispering to her daughter to stay calm. The little girl nodded, sensing her mother's urgency even if she didn't fully understand it. Cena shifted just slightly, positioning himself more strategically, ready to intervene instantly if needed. The man finally realized that someone was fully aware of his intentions. Cena's calm, focused presence seemed to radiate a silent warning. The stranger hesitated, unsure whether to continue or retreat. For the first time, the man felt exposed, like a predator caught in the light. The mother felt a flicker of hope, sensing that the danger might be contained, but she didn't relax fully. She kept her daughter close, ready for anything. The train slowed as it neared the next stop. The tension in the small corner of the subway car was thick, almost tangible. Cena's eyes never left the man. The mother whispered softly, "Almost there. Stay close." The little girl nodded, gripping her mother's hand tightly. In that moment, the world seemed to narrow down to just the three of them: the mother, the daughter, and the silent guardian who had appeared out of nowhere to watch over them. The man took another hesitant step, but Cena's quiet intensity stopped him in his tracks. The mother's pulse raced, but she felt a sense of relief knowing someone else was fully aware, fully ready to protect her child. The little girl looked up briefly, her innocent eyes meeting Cena's calm gaze. She didn't understand everything, but she felt safe. And in that crowded, noisy subway car, a quiet standoff began, a tense, invisible battle between the intentions of a stranger and the presence of someone ready to protect. The morning continued outside the train, oblivious to the drama inside, but within that small space, the ordinary world had shifted into something much more serious, something that would change the little girl's day, her mother's day, and the lives of everyone involved forever. The subway rattled along the tracks, the rhythmic clatter echoing through the car. Passengers were lost in their routines, some scrolling on their phones, some reading, others staring blankly out of the windows. The little girl clung tightly to her mother's hand. Her excitement from earlier now mixed with a subtle unease. Something in the air had shifted, though she couldn't put her finger on it. Her mother's posture had become more protective, her eyes darting subtly around, following the movements of a man who had been lingering nearby. The man, sensing an opportunity, decided to act. He reached out, leaning slightly toward the little girl. His hand hovered near her arm, brushing against the sleeve of her coat. In that instant, the mother's heart leaped into her throat. Fear gripped her chest, a sharp instinctive reaction that made every nerve in her body alert. She immediately moved closer, putting herself fully between the girl and the stranger. Her grip on her daughter's hand tightened, almost painful in its firmness, but she didn't loosen it. Her mind raced, thinking of what to do next, knowing that a wrong move could make the situation worse. The little girl froze, sensing something was wrong even though she didn't understand the danger. Her wide eyes darted between her mother and the stranger, and a tiny shiver ran through her. She squeezed her mother's hand in return, seeking reassurance. Her mother whispered softly, "It's okay, stay close to me, don't move." The girl nodded, trusting her mother completely. The mother's voice was calm, but the intensity in her eyes told a different story. She would protect her daughter at any cost. John Cena, standing nearby, had already anticipated this moment. He had been observing the man for several stops, noting the subtle ways he edged closer each time the train jolted or swayed. Cena's approach was quiet and controlled. He didn't want to startle the passengers or escalate the situation too soon, but he was ready. Every muscle in his body was alert, every sense tuned to the smallest movement. He could see the tension in the mother, the fear in the little girl, and the hesitation in the man. He knew it was time to act if necessary. The man, feeling emboldened, tried again. His hand reached out further, brushing closer to the girl's arm. Panic surged in the mother, and she instinctively stepped forward, planting herself firmly in the man's path. She glared at him, her eyes fierce, silently warning him to stop. The man hesitated, sensing her intensity, but didn't completely retreat. His confidence faltered as he realized that the situation was no longer simple. He had thought he was unnoticed, that no one was paying attention. But now it was clear that both the mother and someone else were aware of his intentions. Cena moved subtly, positioning himself closer to the man without making a scene. His presence was firm and commanding, even in a crowded subway car. The man glanced at him briefly, sensing the authority radiating from Cena. He hesitated again, the first flicker of fear crossing his face. Cena didn't speak yet. He didn't need to. His calm but alert stance was enough to make the man reconsider his actions. Other passengers began to notice the subtle tension. A few glanced around, sensing that something was off, though they couldn't quite see what was happening. Some whispered to each other. Others pulled out their phones, ready to call for help if needed. The mother, still shielding her daughter, noticed the shift in the man's behavior. He was no longer moving as boldly. His glances became quick and nervous, darting around to see if anyone else was aware. The little girl, still holding her mother's hand tightly, whispered softly, "Mom, why is he looking at me like that?" Her voice was innocent but tinged with worry. The mother leaned down slightly, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's face. "He won't touch you," she whispered. "I'm right here and someone else is watching too. You're safe, okay?" The girl nodded, though her small body trembled slightly from fear. The man's hesitation grew. He realized that he had miscalculated. This was not going to be an easy target, and there was someone else in the car whose presence he couldn't ignore. Cena maintained his watchful position, ready to step in instantly if the man made another move. He stayed calm, not raising his voice, not making sudden gestures, but the energy around him was unmistakable. He was in control, and the man could feel it. As the train continued, the man's anxiety became more visible. His hand twitched slightly and his eyes flicked nervously to Cena and the mother. He seemed to be calculating whether to continue or retreat. Meanwhile, the mother's focus never wavered. She kept herself directly between her daughter and the man, her body tense but controlled. Every few seconds, she whispered softly to the girl to stay calm, to keep her hand firmly in hers. The little girl followed every instruction, her trust in her mother absolute. Cena's presence was the turning point. He subtly shifted his weight, closing any space the man could use to reach the girl. His gaze remained fixed, unwavering yet calm. The man flinched, sensing that his plan was failing. He realized he was being watched by someone strong and alert, someone who would not hesitate if action became necessary. The tension in the subway car was palpable. The other passengers, now more aware, began to react in small ways, some moving closer to the mother and daughter, others keeping a cautious eye on the man. The crowded car made the space feel smaller, almost claustrophobic as the drama unfolded quietly but intensely. The little girl clung to her mother, feeling the fear in the air yet also sensing the silent protection surrounding her. The man tried one more time, leaning slightly forward as if to test the waters. But Cena was ready. He moved slightly, positioning himself even closer, and the intensity in his gaze made the man freeze in place. The mother noticed the shift immediately, realizing that help had arrived in a way she hadn't even asked for. Relief mixed with lingering fear as she kept her daughter close, watching the man carefully. The little girl whispered again, "Mom, is he going to hurt me?" Her voice was small, almost trembling. The mother bent down slightly, holding the girl's face gently in her hands. "No, sweetie. You're safe. Don't worry. Someone is watching and I'm right here with you." The girl nodded, still frightened but trusting her mother's words completely. Cena's presence made the danger seem less immediate, even though the man was still nearby. The man, realizing that he could not make a move without immediate consequences, began to step back slightly. His confidence had completely eroded. He glanced around, trying to see if anyone else was ready to intervene, but Cena's calm dominance made that impossible. The mother tightened her grip on her daughter, her body a shield, and whispered again for the girl to stay close. The train slowed as it approached the next station. The man's anxiety increased. He was caught, unable to act and unsure how to escape the attention that was now fully on him. Cena stayed alert, moving subtly to ensure that the man could not reach the girl, while the mother's protective instincts remained fully engaged. The little girl clung to her mother, feeling the tension but also the reassurance of being protected. Other passengers were now more aware. Some moved slightly closer to offer silent support. A few whispered into their phones, perhaps calling the authorities or recording the scene for safety. The man's options were shrinking rapidly. He could feel that the train was about to stop. That intervention would become easier once doors opened and more people could notice what was happening. The mother whispered one last time, softly but firmly, "Stay calm, don't move. We're almost there." The little girl nodded, gripping her mother's hand tightly. Cena's presence remained constant, silent but commanding, making it clear that the man could not proceed. The subway car was crowded, noisy, and yet in the corner near the mother and daughter, time seemed to slow. Every movement, every glance, every heartbeat mattered. Finally, the train began to slow as it neared the next stop. The man's desperation was growing. He realized fully that he could not act, that his plan had been foiled by the mother's vigilance and Cena's quiet but powerful presence. The tension reached its peak, and it was clear that the situation could escalate if he made one wrong move. And in that moment, the little girl, unaware of just how close she had been to danger, clung to her mother, feeling the warmth and protection surrounding her. The mother's steady presence, combined with the silent guardian nearby, had created a shield of safety that the man could not penetrate. The subway car continued to move, the world outside unaware of the quiet drama that had unfolded inside. But the lives of the mother, daughter, and even the stranger had been forever changed by those tense, fleeting moments. The train moved steadily along the tracks, its rhythmic clatter filling the crowded subway car. Inside, the tension had grown to an almost unbearable level. The little girl held her mother's hand tightly, her small fingers intertwined with hers. Feeling the warmth and protection from the only person she fully trusted, she had begun to understand in the most innocent way possible that something was wrong. Her wide eyes scanned the stranger near them, the man who had been inching closer over the past few stops. The mother's heart raced with every slight movement, her senses alert to any change in his behavior. John Cena, blending in as any ordinary passenger might, stayed close enough to intervene without alarming anyone else. His presence was calm, yet the authority he projected was unmistakable. He had been observing the man for several stops, noting his nervous glances, the way he tried to appear casual while inching closer to the little girl. Cena's instincts were razor-sharp. He knew exactly when to act and how to ensure the girl's safety without causing a panic in the crowded car. The man, sensing that his opportunity was slipping, made a sudden, more aggressive move. He reached out as if to grab the girl, thinking quickly that no one was paying attention. But the mother reacted instantly. Her body moved like a shield, stepping directly between her daughter and the stranger. Her arms came up protectively, holding her daughter close to her chest. Her eyes blazed with a mixture of fear and determination. silently warning the man to stop. The little girl froze, terrified, unsure of what was happening. She clutched her mother's hand and whispered, "Mom, what's happening?" Her voice trembled, small and uncertain. The mother bent slightly, brushing her daughter's hair away from her face and whispering reassuringly, "It's okay, baby. You're safe. Stay right here with me." The girl nodded, trusting her mother completely, even in the midst of fear. The man hesitated for the first time. He could feel the intensity of the mother's presence, her unwavering determination to protect her child. But it wasn't just the mother who was keeping him at bay. Cena had subtly stepped closer, positioning himself in a way that blocked any potential path the man might take. He didn't speak yet. He didn't need to. His calm authority was enough to make the man pause, and his physical presence alone made it clear that any attempt to harm the girl would have immediate consequences. Other passengers were beginning to notice the tension, though most didn't fully understand what was happening. A few whispered to each other. Some pulled out their phones, ready to record or call for help if necessary. The crowded subway car seemed smaller somehow, the noise of the train fading into the background as the drama in the corner intensified. The mother held her daughter close, her body tense but controlled. Every second mattered. Every movement could determine what would happen next. The man, realizing that he was being fully watched, tried to act casual, pretending that he had no interest in the little girl. He adjusted his stance, shifted his weight, and forced a small smile, hoping to appear harmless. But Cena's gaze didn't waver. He could see through the pretense, recognizing the desperation and aggression that the man was trying to mask. Cena's presence alone created a barrier between the man and the girl, one that could not be easily crossed. The little girl whispered again, her voice barely audible. "Mom, he keeps looking at me." Her words were filled with a child's honest fear. The mother's eyes softened for a moment, filled with empathy and love, but her focus remained sharp. She whispered back, "I know, sweetie, but he won't touch you. You're safe with me, and we have someone else here too." The girl's eyes widened slightly as she glanced at Cena. Even without knowing who he was, she sensed that he was someone she could trust, someone who would protect her. The man's frustration grew. He realized that he had miscalculated, that his plan was no longer simple. The mother's vigilance and Cena's calm authority had cornered him, leaving no room for action. He took a small step back, trying to regain control, but his movements were stiff, nervous, and unconvincing. He could feel the eyes of the mother, the girl, and Cena all on him at once. For the first time, he felt fear. Cena shifted subtly again, moving closer to the man, not to provoke, but to ensure there was no way the man could reach the girl. His presence was like an invisible shield, strong and unwavering. The mother noticed the change immediately and felt a flicker of relief, knowing that the threat was being managed, though the danger was not entirely over. She whispered softly to her daughter, "Stay calm, stay close to me. Almost there." The little girl nodded, holding her mother's hand tightly, feeling the security around her. The man made another, more desperate move. He leaned slightly forward, as if testing whether he could still reach the girl. Cena's response was immediate. He positioned himself directly in the man's line of reach, his posture calm but unyielding. The man froze again, realizing fully that any attempt to continue would be met with immediate intervention. His confidence was gone, replaced with fear and uncertainty. Other passengers were now beginning to recognize that something serious was happening. Some whispered urgently to each other. A few pulled out their phones, ready to call for help or record the situation. The subway car, once filled with the usual rush hour routine, had transformed into a tense scene where every small movement mattered. The mother held her daughter tightly, whispering occasional reassurances. "It's okay. Don't worry. You're safe." The girl clung to her mother, absorbing every word, feeling the tension but also the warmth of protection around her. The man, sensing that he could not continue without immediate consequences, began to back away slightly. His eyes darted around, trying to find a way to escape without drawing attention, but Cena's calm dominance prevented him from acting. The mother's protective stance and the quiet authority of the man standing beside them created an invisible wall, making it impossible for the stranger to approach the girl. The train slowed as it neared the next station, and the man's panic became more obvious. He realized that the moment to act had passed, that his plan had been stopped before it could succeed. Cena remained vigilant, his eyes tracking every tiny movement, ensuring that no sudden action could be taken. The mother whispered once more to her daughter, "Stay calm, don't move." "Almost there." The girl nodded, gripping her mother's hand tightly, understanding the urgency even if she didn't fully understand the danger. As the train pulled into the station, the man's options were shrinking rapidly. He could feel that help was arriving soon, and there was no way to act without immediate consequences. Cena remained calm, observing the man's behavior, ready to intervene if necessary. The mother's protective instincts were fully engaged, her body shielding her daughter completely. The little girl, sensing the combined safety from both her mother and Cena, felt a flicker of hope amidst her fear. The doors opened with a loud chime, and the crowd outside the train began to notice the tension inside. Passengers on the platform glanced at the scene, some moving closer to offer help, others preparing to alert authorities if needed. The man looked around desperately, realizing that the walls of protection around the little girl were closing in. He could no longer act without drawing attention, and the presence of multiple witnesses made him uncertain and fearful. The mother held her daughter close, whispering reassuring words as they prepared to step off the train. The little girl's fear was still present, but it was now tempered by the safety she felt with her mother and the silent guardian nearby. Cena stayed calm, moving subtly to ensure that the man had no opportunity to cause harm. The subway car, once just a routine part of the morning, had become a stage where vigilance, courage, and quick thinking had prevented a dangerous situation from escalating. And in those tense, silent moments, the mother, the daughter, and Cena shared a bond of trust and protection. The little girl didn't fully understand everything that had happened, but she felt safe. The mother knew that they had narrowly avoided a serious incident. Cena, calm and controlled, had quietly prevented the situation from turning dangerous. The man, now fully aware that he could not act, hesitated, trapped by his own misjudgment and the combined vigilance of those around him. The train stopped completely at the station, and the doors opened. The mother whispered one last time, "Stay close, we're safe now." The little girl nodded, holding on tightly. The tension, while not entirely gone, had shifted. The danger had been contained and the immediate threat was over. Passengers began to move with purpose, aware now that something serious had just occurred. The man remained, hesitant and trapped by the awareness and authority surrounding him, realizing fully that he could no longer act without consequences. In that crowded subway car, an ordinary morning had transformed into a moment of quiet heroism. The mother's vigilance, the little girl's trust, and Cena's silent, commanding presence had combined to prevent harm. The story, unfolding in real time, had shown that courage and awareness, even in ordinary places, could make all the difference. The little girl had been protected, the mother reassured, and the man confronted with the reality that his actions could not go unchecked. The subway train slowed gradually as it approached the next station. The usual clatter of wheels over tracks echoed through the car, but inside the tension was thick, almost tangible. The mother held her daughter tightly, her arms wrapped protectively around the little girl. The girl's small fingers were intertwined with hers, her trust absolute. Though she didn't fully understand the danger, she sensed the seriousness of the situation and clung to her mother even tighter. Every movement in the train felt slower, every sound sharper. The man who had been following and trying to approach them was frozen in place, realizing fully that his plan had failed. His eyes darted around nervously, searching for a way out, a chance to escape, but there was none. John Cena, still standing calmly nearby, observed every movement carefully. He had been silent throughout the ordeal, letting his presence do the work. Now, as the train slowed, he adjusted his position subtly to ensure that the man couldn't make any sudden moves. His posture was relaxed yet firm, signaling that he was ready to step in immediately if needed. He didn't raise his voice or make sudden gestures, but the quiet authority he projected was undeniable. The man could feel it. He knew that any attempt to act would be met instantly, and he couldn't risk it. The little girl looked up at her mother, her eyes wide and anxious. "Mom, what's going to happen now?" she whispered softly, her voice trembling. The mother bent down slightly to meet her gaze, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "It's okay, baby," she said softly, her voice gentle but steady. "We're safe. You did exactly what I asked, and we have someone here watching us too. You're okay." The girl nodded, still holding on tightly, feeling the warmth and reassurance of her mother's words. The man finally made a hesitant movement, taking a small step backward as if he were considering fleeing. His confidence had completely drained, replaced by fear and uncertainty. He had realized that his actions would not go unnoticed, that there were witnesses and that he could not get away with anything. Cena continued to watch him closely, every muscle in his body alert but his movements calm and controlled. He knew the situation was delicate. One wrong move, even from the mother or bystanders, could escalate it. He needed to maintain control without causing panic. Passengers around them had begun to notice that something serious was happening. A few people whispered to each other. Some pulled out their phones, either recording or calling for help. A couple of passengers shifted closer to the mother and daughter, instinctively providing support, though quietly so as not to draw the man's attention. The crowded car, once filled with routine morning chatter, had transformed into a scene of tension and vigilance. Everyone could sense that something important was unfolding, even if they didn't know the details. The train doors opened with a loud metallic click, and the platform beyond was filled with people waiting to board or exit. The man glanced around desperately, looking for a way to escape without attracting attention. He realized fully that he could not act without being caught. He froze, trapped by the combined presence of the mother, the little girl, Cena, and the now aware passengers around them. His earlier confidence and aggression had completely disappeared, replaced by fear and hesitation. The mother whispered softly to her daughter, "Stay close, baby. Don't let go of my hand." The little girl nodded, gripping her mother's hand tightly, her small body tense but trusting. She felt the protection surrounding her, the warmth of her mother and the calm authority of Cena, standing quietly but clearly ready to act if needed. The sense of safety, though fragile, began to outweigh her fear. As the train came to a complete stop, the doors slid open fully, allowing the passengers to move freely. The man's options were shrinking further. Cena positioned himself subtly, blocking any path the man might take toward the little girl or her mother. The mother, still shielding her daughter, breathed a small sigh of relief knowing that help had arrived at the perfect moment. The tension in her body was still present, but it was easing ever so slightly. The first person to react on the platform was a security officer who had noticed the strange behavior from outside the train. He quickly approached, signaling for backup, while other passengers stepped aside to let the mother and daughter move safely. The man froze, realizing that he was now surrounded. The authorities were arriving, and there was no chance for him to act without being caught. His body language shifted from defiance to panic. Every movement seemed hesitant, every glance anxious as he realized that his attempt to harm the girl had failed completely. Cena stayed calm, maintaining his position as the silent guardian. He ensured that the mother and daughter were protected as they moved off the train. Other passengers, seeing the man's obvious fear, kept a safe distance while keeping an eye on him, ready to assist if necessary. The mother whispered gently to her daughter, "We're safe now. Just a few more steps." The girl nodded, her trust absolute, feeling the calm protection around her even in the midst of chaos. The man's panic intensified as the security officer and additional authorities reached him. He realized fully that he could not escape or avoid responsibility. He was cornered, and the situation was no longer in his control. The mother, still holding her daughter, watched as the authorities began to take charge. Relief washed over her in small waves, knowing that the immediate threat was being neutralized. Cena remained close but unobtrusive, ready to step in if needed, though it was clear that the situation was now under control. Passengers on the platform began whispering among themselves, some amazed by what they had just witnessed. They spoke in hushed tones about the courage of the mother, the bravery of Cena, and the obvious fear in the man's behavior. Phones captured glimpses of the incident, though the focus for most was on the safety and calm resolution rather than spectacle. The little girl, still clutching her mother's hand, glanced up at Cena once again. Though she didn't understand fully who he was, she felt an inexplicable sense of gratitude and trust. He had been there when it mattered most. The authorities led the man away, carefully restraining him and reading him his rights. His earlier aggression was gone, replaced by confusion, fear, and disbelief at how quickly the situation had been contained. The mother's focus remained on her daughter, checking to make sure she was unharmed, her small face pale but safe. The little girl looked up at her mother, then around at the surrounding people, and finally met Cena's eyes once more. In that moment, trust and relief mingled in her innocent gaze. As the mother and daughter moved toward the platform exit, other passengers offered gentle words of reassurance. "Are you okay? You're safe now. That was scary, but you handled it well." The mother nodded, smiling softly despite her lingering fear, grateful for the awareness and courage of the strangers around her. Cena followed at a distance, ensuring no further danger approached, his calm presence a silent confirmation that the threat had been neutralized. The little girl squeezed her mother's hand and whispered, "Thank you for keeping me safe." The mother smiled and kissed her forehead gently. "Always, baby, always." Cena, noticing the small exchange, gave a subtle nod of reassurance before beginning to step away, blending back into the crowd. He hadn't needed recognition or thanks. His focus had always been the girl's safety. The man, now in custody, was surrounded by authorities and questioned quietly as the mother and daughter prepared to leave the station. The situation, which had started as a terrifying encounter, had ended without physical harm thanks to vigilance, calm action, and the immediate intervention of someone who noticed the danger before it escalated. The mother guided her daughter through the crowd, taking deep breaths, still processing the events that had just unfolded. Outside the station, the morning sunlight felt different, almost warmer, as the mother held her daughter close. The city moved around them, unaware of the tense moments that had just passed in a subway car below. The little girl looked up at her mother, still shaken but filled with gratitude for her safety. The mother smiled softly, her heart still racing, thankful for the presence of someone who had quietly protected them. In that moment, the ordinary morning had transformed into an extraordinary experience. Courage, vigilance, and human instinct had combined to prevent harm. The mother had protected her daughter. The little girl had trusted completely, and Cena had intervened silently, ensuring safety without causing panic. The incident became a quiet story of heroism and protection, showing that ordinary people, or those blending in as ordinary, can make an extraordinary difference when it matters most. As they walked away from the station, the mother whispered once more to her daughter, "You were so brave, baby. I'm proud of you." The girl smiled faintly, still holding her mother's hand, feeling safe and cared for. The city continued its busy morning, but for that mother and daughter, the day had already been changed forever, by courage, vigilance, and the quiet heroism that appeared when it was most needed. The mother and her daughter walked out of the subway station, the morning sunlight warming their faces. The city hummed around them as people hurried past, some on their way to work, others carrying groceries or talking on their phones. For most, it was just another ordinary morning. But for this mother and daughter, everything had changed in ways they could still hardly process. The little girl's hand was still tightly wrapped in her mother's, a connection that felt more important than ever. Her small face carried a mix of relief, lingering fear, and curiosity about what had just happened. She looked up at her mother and whispered softly, "Mom, was he going to hurt me?" The mother paused, kneeling slightly to meet her daughter's gaze. Her voice was gentle but steady, carrying the strength she had drawn upon just moments ago. "He could have," she said honestly, "but we stayed calm and we were careful. And someone was there to help us. That's why you're safe now." The little girl nodded, taking comfort in her mother's words. The intensity of fear was still there like a shadow, but it was now mixed with a sense of safety and reassurance. John Cena, who had remained nearby until the situation was fully under control, watched from a distance as the mother and daughter began to move away. He didn't seek recognition or thanks. His priority had been the safety of the little girl. Even so, there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that the immediate danger had been prevented. His presence had allowed the mother to guide,